Yorkshire boy, you know, has a dream to play for Yorkshire.
I actually locked the dressing room door and very quietly picked up the cap, and I actually tried it on in front of the mirror, and I thought it looked exceptionally well, but I felt very guilty that I'd actually touched this treasured cap. But the inspiration was to say, I want one.
Oh, your chest used to stick out as you walked through the gates here at Headingley. Marvellous. I would have played for nothing. I'd have played for Yorkshire for nothing.
Since I was about 9 years of age, I wanted to play for Yorkshire. It was the only club I thought about. In those days, when you grew up in the back streets playing cricket, I mean, every boy just wanted to play for Yorkshire. There was no doubt about it. There was never a second thought about playing for anywhere else.
Really, it's a thrill of a lifetime. I'm going on to play for Yorkshire, and the day you get your Yorkshire cap, we'd have all given our right arms to do that. I don't think it's quite the same today, which is sad.
To play with Yorkshire first team and hopefully go on to play with England.
From Bradford, Joe Johnson, champion of the world.
The Crucible Theatre, Sheffield, the home of the World Snooker Championships, was once the site of the Adelphi Hotel, where on January the 8th, 1863, the Yorkshire County Cricket Club was founded, with the annual subscription to be not less than the considerable sum of £half a guinea per member. The landlord of the Adelphi was Harry Sampson, a notable Yorkshire cricketer, who even today holds one world record. Playing for the Wednesday against Sheffield Town on 8th of February 1841, he scored 162 on ice. Cricket was flourishing in Yorkshire long before the formation of the county club. Darnall Cricket Ground, set in beautiful countryside some distance away from Sheffield's industrial heartland, was opened in 1822 and was considered second only to Lord's, the London ground, built by Yorkshireman Thomas Lord from Thirsk. This open land above Sheffield city centre was in the early 19th century the site of the vast Hyde Park ground, where on some days as many as 200 cricketers could be seen playing in the numerous games. It was on this ground in 1833 that Yorkshire played its first county fixture, beating Norfolk by 120 runs. At this time, cricket was a gambling game, played for huge stakes. Yorkshire's greatest player was Tom Marsden, a left-handed batsman and fast underarm bowler, known as Sheffield's Pride, who in 1828 challenged any man in England to a single-wicket match with a side stake of £50. In 1833, 20,000 people filled the Darnall ground when Marsden played and lost to Fuller Pilch of Norfolk. Pilch declaring that he defeated the champion. Whilst the city of Sheffield provided many of the county's finest early cricketers, it was the textile village of Lascelles Hall, 3 miles from Huddersfield, that produced whole families of professional Yorkshire cricketers. The village team was capable of taking on and beating all comers. At one time, 23 professionals lived in Lascelles Hall, with 6 in one row of weavers' cottages. Across the valley from Lascelles Hall is Kirkheaton, the birthplace of 2 of Yorkshire's most famous sons. George Herbert Hurst and Wilfred Rhodes. When they were both at their prime, the question was asked, who is the greatest all-rounder? The answer? He bowls left-handed, bats right-handed, and he comes from Kirkheaton. Hurst and Rhodes were 2 of the stalwarts in the first Yorkshire team to be captained by amateur Martin Bladen Hawke. Lord Hawke, as he was to become, was the son of a parson, descendant of an admiral and the most famous of the very small band of non-native Yorkshiremen to have played for the White Rose County. Hawke, seen here in 1896, was born on the 16th of August 1860 at Willingham in Lincolnshire. He was educated at Eton and Cambridge University. Yorkshire recruited Hawke in 1881, and for a time he played under the professional captaincy of Tom Emmett. This 1877 Yorkshire team was full of star players. The prolific Ephraim Lockwood, the first in a long line of outstanding Yorkshire and England opening batsmen. George Pinder, known as the Prince of Keepers. The great all-rounder Happy Jack Ulliott, the first Englishman to score 2 50s in a test match, who also kept goal for Sheffield Wednesday. And Alan Hill, the Devastator, a handloom weaver from Kirkheaton who could break a stump in half with the speed of his bowling. The all-professional team that Lord Hawke inherited was one of great ability but little discipline. It was said that he took over a team of ale cans. The players, well aware that the alternative to playing cricket was a job in the mill or unemployment, were open to temptations. And many led short but merry lives. Hawke imposed strict rules and discipline, but he also introduced winter pay, bonuses for exceptional performances, retirement benefits, and this annual get-together at his family home. He was the first of Yorkshire's 3 most powerful, uncompromising and effective captains, a line extended by the 2 most successful captains, Brian Sellers and Brian Close. Lord Hawke was the architect of Yorkshire's cricketing greatness. Captaining the county for 27 years and holding the office of President for 40 years. At the dawn of the 20th century, in cricket's golden age of Grace, Ranjit Singhi and country house cricket, Yorkshire were regarded as almost invincible, winning the county championship 6 times in the first 12 years of the 20th century. The team contained such great players as the dashing amateur all-rounder F.S. Jackson, who captained England and won the home series against Australia in 1905. The opening batsman and slip fielder Long John Tunnicliffe, who scored over 20,000 runs and took 691 catches, many off the bowling of Rhodes. Tunnicliffe's opening partner was J.T. Brown, and together in 1898 scored a record 554. David Lucky Denton, batting at 3, scored 33,282 runs. And David Hunter kept wicket for Yorkshire for 21 years, taking 906 catches and stumping 347. The most famous Yorkshire cricketers of this time were the 2 all-rounders from Kirkheaton, Hurst and Rhodes. Although always coupled together, they were not the closest of friends and had quite different characters. George Herbert, as Hurst was always known, was a cheerful, warm-hearted man. He was a hard-hitting batsman and devastating swing bowler who played for Yorkshire for 32 years, doing the double 14 times, including, in 1906, the unique feat of the double-double, scoring 2,385 runs and taking 208 wickets in the 1906 season. After retirement, Hurst became a popular and distinguished coach at Eton.
Because George Hurst had this wonderful knack of making you feel good, of making you feel as though you were really good. It was the most extraordinary gift that he had of being able to talk to boys. And I think he knew how you felt, you see. I've never really come across anyone quite like him.
Lining up here in 1899 in his first test match is Wilfred Rhodes, a slow bowler who batted at both number 1 and number 11 for England. Rhodes, seen here waiting to bat at Hovingham Hall, was a private and rather dour man whose sometimes terse manner has been absorbed into Yorkshire cricketing folklore. After a young player making his debut had hit his first 2 balls for 4, Wilfred reputedly said, "Hey lad, what's the doing? We don't play cricket in Yorkshire for fun." Rhodes did the double no less than 16 times, and in his first 3 seasons with Yorkshire took 594 wickets. He played for England 58 times, the last time at the age of 52.
Wilfred, in my opinion, was the greatest left-arm bowler of all. He made a great study of the opposing batsmen He knew all their weaknesses, and he never stopped applying his art to the weaknesses of the batsmen, and not until he'd got them out was he satisfied.
In old age, Rhodes, although blind, used to attend test matches. He died in Bournemouth at the age of 95. Remembered like that other son of Kirkheaton, George Herbert Hurst, as one of Yorkshire's two greatest all-round cricketers. It was during this golden era that Yorkshire scored 887, still the highest score in county cricket. The strength of Yorkshire cricket is reflected in the number of Yorkshiremen that played in representative games, such as this gentlemen versus players fixture at Lord's in 1898. Seen here on the left is the tall figure of Tunnicliffe, and next to him, F.S. Jackson. Following them is Schofield Haigh, the right-arm bowler, who took 1,876 wickets for Yorkshire, a small figure on the left. And right at the back, the 21-year-old Wilfred Rhodes. In the south of England, the game was built around the country house. Yorkshire cricket, in contrast, grew out of the industrial towns of Sheffield, Bradford, Huddersfield and Leeds. Visiting teams joke that chimneys around Bramall Lane, Sheffield, were stoked up when they went into bat.
One big difference is that in the south, they don't give me the impression they're all that concerned with wins. But in Yorkshire, it matters very much that Yorkshire's winning. Very much. If we're losing, they're depressed.
Yorkshire's concession to cricketing elegance are the two festival grounds at Harrogate youth that no one thought would ever end. When one of Yorkshire's most promising all-rounders, christened Major William Booth, went to the front, his sister kept a light burning in their Pudsey cottage in the hope of his return. But he was never to come home. He'd fallen at the Somme. And with the death through illness of Alonso Drake, Yorkshire had lost the two all-rounders that they expected to carry them into the 1920s. England had changed in many ways since the Great War. Cricket was still extraordinarily popular. In 1923, 26,000 people were inside the Park Avenue ground for the Roses match, with an estimated 50,000 locked out.
For a test match, I used to have to be at work at 5 o'clock that morning. I used to stretch from turnstiles here, right on and right down Carrigan Road, and it was about a bob to come in.
Huge crowds, the greatest ever seen at Leeds, were present on the second day. The 8-year-old record for the ground was broken by 2,000. Here are some of the 38,000 people who witnessed the match, a match which had already encountered such dramatic changes of fortune and which looks like providing yet more sensational cricket.
In 1926, Leeds celebrated its 300th anniversary, and throughout the 1920s, the Yorkshire team was all-conquering, winning the county championship 5 times in 10 years. A new generation of stars emerged. Percy Holmes, Herbert Sutcliffe, Edgar Oldroyd, George Macaulay.
Macaulay. He was a great bowler, but a bit of a boyo.
Abe Waddington, the quick-tempered bowler with the classic action. Emmett Robinson, the epitome of Yorkshireness. And Roy Kilner, one of the most popular of all Yorkshire cricketers, seen here with his family. Once summed up the dourness of the Roses match of this time. We said good morning, and after that, all we say is, how's that? Roy Kilner caught a fever while coaching in India and died in 1928. Sadly mourned by 100,000 people at his Wombwell funeral. Herbert Sutcliffe from Pudsey was the first of a line of Yorkshire and England opening batsmen carried on by Hutton and Boycott.
When he was playing cricket in a test match at Lord's, he went in with Jack Hobbs on one occasion, and at lunchtime the score was roughly 90 for no wicket, and Herbert says, I'll just have a sandwich today, and he went to the corner of the dressing room, picked out the opener's case, took out the cash book, the cheque book, and started paying a few cheques to make sure that he got the discount in time. But that's the sort of man he was. He took every ball completely separately. Something very difficult to do. I could never do that. If somebody beat me 2 or 3 times, it was worrying me. Now, he would think that nothing had happened. He could totally switch off.
Who was the greatest of the Yorkshire openers has been the subject of many debates.
I think Len Houghton was the best player I ever saw, particularly on all types of wickets. I think his technique was far above anybody else. I mean, I grew up through the war when Lenny was injured in the army and came out to play with Pudsey St Lawrence in the back end, and I cycled to every Bradford League ground watching him play. He was my hero, and I think he was streets above anybody else I ever saw. Tremendous technique.
If I had to pick someone who was batting for my life, I'd go for Boycott. Not the natural ability or the natural flair of a Viv Richards or a Clive Lloyd or a Barry Richards or a Graham Pollock or a Greg Chappell. Not the natural ability or the natural flair of these people, but if I had to pick someone who was batting for my life, I'd go for Boycott. I don't think you can ever take his application, dedication, concentration away from him.
Sutcliffe had 2 celebrated opening partners. For Yorkshire, it was Percy Holmes. Together in 1932, they scored 555 for the first wicket against Essex, still an English record. And with Jack Hobbs, Herbert Sutcliffe formed England's most successful opening pair ever, raising a record 15 century partnerships. When Rhodes eventually retired in 1930, he was replaced as the slow left-arm bowler by Headley Verity, seen here on the right of Bill Bowes. These 2 bowlers led the Yorkshire attack through the 1930s. Under the ruthless captaincy of Brian Sellers, here on the left of Maurice Leyland, Yorkshire were all-conquering, winning the championship 7 times in 10 years. Ellis Robinson, the off-spinner from Denby, Maine, recalls an incident which typifies the Sellers style.
I caught it over the railings. It wasn't able to doing this, but it I got like that. He walked through and stitch on. One hand, he says. You'll get 2 hands to do it when you play for me. You know, that was the sort of bloke he was.
He was a great captain, was Brian. A great man for getting the best out of the players. He was very strict disciplinarian on the field, but relaxed afterwards, and made everybody feel part of everything that was going on all the time.
And here in precious footage from 36, Sellers leads out the Yorkshire side, followed by Sutcliffe, Verity and Smales. And there's Wood, Turner and Leyland. Hutton, Mitchell and Bowes. The opponents, Nottinghamshire. And about to open the bowling, who else but Bill Bowes. Bowes wasn't a bowler who relied on pace, but rather on lift, accuracy and a bit of a nip from outside the off stump. Here's a man, though, who did rely on pace, Harold Larwood, bowling later in the match to Herbert Sutcliffe, one of the best bowlers against one of the best batsmen. Bill Vose to Sutcliffe, and there to Hutton. Larwood again. If we look at Sutcliffe's defensive style, back and across and getting behind the ball in true Yorkshire opening batsman tradition. And here's Maurice Leyland, the left-arm stalwart of the 1930s, batting with Cyril Turner. And here's Barber, on this occasion the highest scorer, with 50 not out in the Yorkshire first innings. Arthur Wood, the England wicketkeeper at the time, hit by Bill Vose in the most painful of positions. And here's Bill Bowes, not renowned for his batting, nor for the efficiency of his running. He and Arthur Wood just escaping run-out, but Larwood finishing off the Yorkshire innings by bowling Bowes. 224 all-out on the first innings, Yorkshire. When Yorkshire take the field, Hedley Verity is soon in action, bowling to Keaton. Look at the crowd of fielders on the offside, and Brian Sellers at silly mid-off. At the other end, Bill Bowes to Harris, with his economical metronome-like run-up. 10 paces, nagging accuracy, just outside the off-stump. And there's an LBW decision turned down. The sawdust tells us the state of the wicket on that occasion. It was rain-affected, and Bowes was bowling well within himself. At the other end, Frank Smales to Keaton, a bowler of some variety. Verity again, and Sellers pouches the Nottinghamshire batsman Maxwell. Now, Verity hated to give away runs. Look at his reaction as the umpire signals 4. Smales now bowling to Heen, and Arthur Wood takes a difficult one outside the off-stump. There's a straight drive down the ground off Frank Smales, one of the few that were played in the Nottinghamshire innings. And here's a complete mix-up between Heen and Vose, with the stumps being broken. Harold Larwood playing straight against Smales, now bowling off-spin, until he loses his patience and Nottinghamshire are all out for 149. When Larwood leads his men out for the start of the second innings, Sutcliffe and Hutton are the Yorkshire opening pair. Sutcliffe scores 51 before being caught at cover off Butler. Hutton is playing carefully. But Leyland, playing with his usual attacking manner, hits out. There he hits Bill Vose straight through the offside. Brian Sellers facing Larwood, one of the greatest captains of this or any other era, facing one of the greatest fast bowlers. But at the other end, Barber not so lucky against Larwood, having to be helped from the field. Nevertheless, a stalwart contribution in this match, Barber scored 122 runs without being dismissed. Yorkshire soon declare an 197 for 5, just time to see Joe Hardstaff facing Headley Verity before the game peters out into a draw. If any further proof were needed of the county's dominance of English cricket, the 1938 Test team that beat Australia at the Oval contained 5 Yorkshiremen: Hutton, Verity, Bowes, Wood and Maurice Leyland.
So Maurice Leyland joins Hutton, and it's Yorkshire against the might of Australia.
Maurice Leyland from Harrogate, a powerful, wholehearted left-handed batsman who scored a century both in his first game against Australia in 1929 and here in his last game at the Oval in 1938.
I used to refer to his bat as a railway sleeper. I would pick it up sometimes and feel, well, how do you, but his forearms were as thick as my thighs, and it makes a difference, does this. And when he hit the ball really in the middle of the bat, it used to go like a bullet. He used to, if you don't want to be a fielder and get in the way of one of Maurice Leyland's drive.
8 years ago, I was very fortunate to see Don Bradman get his wonderful score at Leeds, and I little realised that 8 years later I should be in a position to beat it.
They thought it was the Test that didn't matter, but it turns out to be one of the greatest in the history of the game. And its hero is 22-year-old Yorkshireman Len Hutton, who jumps to fame as the man of the cricket hour, maybe of the cricket century. Hour after hour, his bat flashes to resounding snick after snick. Mile after mile, white legs leap across that green turf, until the vast crowd begins to think of records. 200. Hutton gets his 300 and looks like going on to 1,000. And the stroke that breaks the record. While the world cheers, Bradman is first to congratulate the youngster who beat Don's own record. The highest individual score in any Test match, the longest innings by any batsman in first-class cricket.
The sad death in September 1990 of Sir Leonard Hutton brought forth a cascade of tributes to one of Yorkshire's greatest sons. As a boy, his cricket potential was already in evidence.
Of course, I was born and really bred in a place called Fulneck, and it is a quiet place just on the outskirts of Putsey. My own difficulty was to find somebody to play with. In Fulneck, we had a minister who was quite an enthusiastic cricketer, and I often would stop him, and I'd have the bat and a ball, and I'd hand him the ball and ask him if he would bowl me a few. And sometimes he used to bowl to me for an hour in the street, using the lamppost as a wicket. One of my brothers played for the Putsey St Lawrence, and I used to watch the matches with him. And then over the years, I gradually found myself in their second 11. But it was really through him that I got interested in Putsey St Lawrence.
Despite establishment opposition, Hutton became England's first professional captain. Here at Lord's in 1953, tossing up with Australian captain Lindsay Hassett. After a close-fought series, he won back the Ashes for England.
When we won the Ashes at the Oval, that was a great occasion. And then in Australia, in Adelaide, when we won that, the rubber on that tour in 1954, those were two occasions which I shall always remember.
Headley Verity on the left and Bill Bowes on the right were the two bowlers responsible for the great uninterrupted success of the 1930s. Bill Bowes from Ellens started as an MCC professional at Lord's in 1928. By the time he was 20, he had learned to swing the ball both ways, which, coupled with his accuracy and bounce, made him a test match bowler.
Bill wasn't that quick. I've played against many a quicker bowler than Bill, but Bill could make it lift a bit off what we call off a length. He could be getting you playing up here, and he could bowl a pretty good bouncer, but Bill's bouncer, he tried to encourage the batsman to hook.
Bow's first wicket against Australia was that of Bradman at Adelaide.
Now, Bill, a real Yorkshire thunderbolt. Oh, got it! Bradman King bowled for a duck.
Bowes took 100 wickets or more in 8 of his first 9 seasons. He was a prisoner of war for 2.5 years, which considerably weakened him, and he retired in 1947 to become a respected cricket writer with the Yorkshire Evening News and Yorkshire Evening Post. One of the many Yorkshire cricketers, Truman, Illingworth, Boycott among them, who have gone on to comment knowledgeably on the game.
Nothing seems to be going right for the lad at all at the moment. But nobody can
This is Matthew Dodge from Horsforth, a left-arm bowler who played his first game for Yorkshire in 1990. All the best Yorkshire teams have included a high-class left-arm spinner, from Pete to Peel, to Rhodes, to Kilner, to Verity, to Wardle.
No, it's a fair act to follow, isn't it? So just keep working at it and do my best, hopefully I can follow on from that.
One of the finest of this long tradition was Headley Verity, a bowler of almost medium pace, who had learnt a great deal from Wilfred Rhodes.
Headley used to bowl with the ball like this, with a seam like that, and bowl more down, whereas Wilfred bowled with his wrist underneath and flighted the ball a lot more. So therefore, whilst Headley bowled the ball quicker and less turn, Wilfred flighted the ball and spun it more.
Verity burst onto the scene in 1930, taking 350 wickets in his first 2 full seasons, including 10 for 10 against Nottinghamshire at Headingley. Playing for England at Lord's in 1934, he took 14 Australian wickets in the day, a record still.
Had a lot of bounce, you see. It was a 6 foot 2. Very accurate.
In his last match for Yorkshire, Verity took 7 for 9 against Sussex before going off to war as an officer in the Green Howards. He died in 1943 from wounds suffered while leading his company across a blazing cornfield in Sicily. Although a great deal had changed, Yorkshire once again finished top of the county championship in 1946. They owed much to the recall of the 43-year-old slow left-arm bowler Arthur Booth from Featherstone, who headed the first-class averages that season. Despite this success, Yorkshire needed to rebuild their ageing team. This proved a difficult process under their new captain, all-rounder Norman Yardley, a Cambridge Blue from Royston near Barnsley, who also captained England 14 times and dismissed Bradman several times with his thoughtful, medium-paced bowling.
I owe a lot to Norman Yardley because not only did he give the right encouragement, as far as I was concerned, but he had a marvellous knowledge of the game, and he set the field. And for the first, that year we're talking about, when I took 200 wickets, he set the field. I was so raw. I mean, I'd had the experience. I knew how to bowl, but I didn't know the players in county cricket as he did. As they were coming down the pavilion steps, he was setting the field because he knew them, and he knew the strengths and weaknesses and advised me where to bowl.
Yorkshire never won the championship during Yardley's 9 years as captain, partly because he and Hutton were often away battling for England, as here in the unequal struggle against the all-conquering 1948 Australians, and partly because Yorkshire lacked team unity.
With a team of 11 very talented individuals probably, but we weren't a team. And that's probably the reason that why Surrey won, was it 5, 7 championships, whatever we won. There were 2 years when we finished second behind them, only appointed to, when we should have won it. And I'm afraid because we weren't a team in the true sense of the word, we didn't do that. Norman Yardley was a very good captain, nice man, too nice a man. And I'm afraid he wasn't strong enough to handle some of the strong professionals in the side.
When the Surrey side came together in the 50s, I was very fortunate in playing in that side that won the championship 7 years running. Then that was the first county that season after season put real pressure on Yorkshire and played them in the same way as they played for decade after decade. So that was the good part about it.